What's up, Notjust developers? Welcome back to our channel. Oh my god, I missed you so much during the summer break, and sorry for being late today because I had to bring this dude from his grooming. Say hi, Denchik, and then go play. But what are we going to do today? Today, I prepare for you a very exciting build. Today, we're going to build a photo sharing application, which is going to be a full stack app, and it's going to be a tutorial perfect for beginners whatever your experience currently is with React Native and Expo. What exactly is this application going to do? We're going to build a photo sharing app specifically for events. Think about weddings or parties or groups where you want to create a shared folder or a shared album and let everyone take photos and add them there. So some of the features are going to be to create and invite your friends to this album and to share this. Usually that happens with a QR code. You're going to capture photos and add them to that shared album and then share the photos with all the guests. Maybe after some time, like maybe you will allow only to see the photos the next day after the event. This idea I got from some popular applications on the App Store. One of them is the POV application, another one is Lens, and they are these amazing applications that you can use for your events where you allow people to capture the moments from their perspective. So, by building this application, what are we going to learn? We are going to use for building the application React Native 081. We're going to use Expo SDK 54. At the moment of launching this video, Expo SDK 54 has just a couple of days from being public. We're going to use Expo Router v6, NativeWind for styling our components using Tailwind CSS classes, and we're going to use Tanstack Query for managing the cache and querying the data from our backend. Speaking about the backend, we're going to use Supabase for the backend for things like authentication for the database. And when it comes to media for storing images and videos, we are actually going to use Cloudinary, which is an amazing cloud-based solution for managing all kinds of media files. In fact, Cloudinary is sponsoring this video, so thank you very much, our partners from Cloudinary, for making it possible. And if you don't know about Cloudinary, we're going to learn more about them today. And this is a very solid solution for managing your media files in your applications. When it comes to images and videos, you can do a lot of things like optimizing, transforming them on the fly, delivering them with powerful APIs. You can also use AI to edit your photos, to generate, to enlarge your photos, to improve the quality, and also they offer a great asset management tools for your team. So we're going to see that in action in a second, but before we get started, make sure to download the asset bundle that I am always preparing for you. You can find it at notjust.dev/projects/photo sharing, or you can simply go to our website. And if you go to tutorials, you're going to find the photo sharing application. Fill in your email here, and you're going to receive the link to the Notion guide. This Notion guide contains all the steps that we're going to need today, all the to-do list, all the links, all the commands, the layouts, even some important code snippets that we're going to use. So you're going to need it if you want to follow along and learn this yourself. And with that being said, I think we are ready to get started. Let's roll the intro and let's run and let's build this amazing application. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and start by initializing a new project. From the guide, you will have the command here, but what we have to do is open a terminal, and in the guide, there is information on how to set it up. But open a terminal. Let's go ahead and navigate to our projects folder. And let's go ahead and run npx create expo app to create a new expo application. Also add at latest to make sure that you're using the latest version of the create expo app tool. Then we're going to give it a name, for example, photo sharing. And then we're going to give it a template. And the template that we're going to use is going to be blank-TypeScript. I usually like to start with a blank project because I want to install and add only the things that we need during the tutorial and avoid a lot of noise. And this way I know that we will all start from the same step, and I'm going to help you install and set up and configure everything. And this way you're also going to understand better how everything works together when it comes to Expo Router, NativeWind, and so on. And TypeScript is because it's smart to use TypeScript. All right, we see our project is ready. Let's go ahead and open it either Visual Studio Code or in Cursor or in any editor of your choice. In my case, I'm going to open it in Cursor. And what I'm going to do is open a new terminal here. And right away, I'm going to do npm start. npm start is actually a shortcut to npx expo start. And this is starting our development server. From here, we can either use the Expo Go application that you can download from App Store or Play Store, and then scan this QR code, and you're going to have this application running on your physical device. Or if you have Android simulator or iOS simulator, you can press A or I, and it's going to run here on the device. In my case, I'm running the iPhone 16. I think I can even run a newer simulator, an iPhone 20. Oh no, yeah, this is iPhone 16, but it's running iOS 26. So it's even going to have like the glass UI. But it's going to work also on older iOS devices or operate OS systems, and also on Android as well, which we're going to test a bit later. For now, let me run it, press I again, because first time it timed out. And while that is happening, I would like to say hello to everyone who is joining us live. How are you doing, guys? I really missed you during the summer. Hello. Let me grab my coffee. Oh, thank you. Oh, și fierbinte. Okay. Hello, Fabio from Brazil. It will be cool to include a feature to capture a face of a person and show all pictures of these faces. That's a nice feature, like to show like people in the photos, right? And then to be able to search by people, yeah, by faces. Hello, Gemadi Global. Hello, Scanny. So Supabase will only be used for also for a database. We have a database where we'll need tables for our events and for memberships, like being able to know which events you're joining. But more on that a bit later. Why is it timing out? Maybe I need to what? Just manually open Expo Go. I don't know why is it doing that. Maybe I will simply remove Expo Go from here. It's a bit laggy. Don't like that. Come on. Yeah, very laggy. What do I have? Give me just 1 second. Let me try to start it again. Let's do I again. Maybe compatibility with SDK 54. No, it should work. It should work because I've been already using Expo SDK 54 for a while, and I've been preparing for this project. So yeah, now it's running and it's loaded. And if we ignore this error, we can simply press C to clear everything. And if I do a reload, everything is going to be fine. We see that open up app.tsx to start working on your application. So at the moment, app.tsx is the first file, the entry point of our application. And if I will go ahead here and say hello world, instead of that text, it's automatically going to refresh and show here. Let me bring this view here so I can make sure that you see everything. So you were not able to see the full part of my emulator. Now I think it should be better. And in terms of the code, like, is it enough zoom in or do I need to zoom in more? Didn't do a live stream for like 2 months and I already like forgot how to do them. But anyway, the next step. Now we have a running application. However, our application is going to have multiple screens. For that reason, we're going to use Expo Router to be able to implement our navigation system and define and create different screens in our application. Let's go ahead and open the Expo Router installation guide. And we are going to skip to the manual installation steps where it explains how to set up Expo Router. I'm going to explain a bit later how it works, but what we need to do is first copy the dependencies that we need to install here. I'm going to go back to the terminal and I will leave our app working here, but I'm going to press on the plus to open up a new terminal where I can paste the npx expo install expo router command with all of the dependencies, and it's installing these 6 modules with npm. All right, now the next step is going to be to update the entry point. The entry point in the package.json at the moment is this index.ts. But when we're using Expo Router, it's going to be Expo Router-entry. This is basically us telling React Native what is going to be the first file that is going to load. So when using Expo Router, we need to update that. And our next step is to add the schema in our app.json. I usually add it after the slug here at the top. Add the schema which is going to be used for deep links. Think about a schema for a website is HTTPS. In our case, it's going to be photo sharing. And also, I'm going to show you a bit later when we are going to use scanning the QR codes, we're going to need this schema to open up our application. I think we are done here. The rest are optional and a lot of them are already by default integrated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, I'm going to stop the development server, and I'm going to start it with -- clear. This is going to start the development server, but it's also going to clear the cache, and we're going to see here bundle cache is empty. And if I'm going to do reload on our application, it's going to load again the entry point of our project, and we are going to see this welcome to Expo welcome screen. We see this welcome screen because we didn't define any screens yet. Expo Router is a file-based navigation system, and what does that mean? It means that it's going to look into a specific folder called app, and it's going to take files from that folder and create screens out of them. Because we don't have yet the app directory, we see the default welcome screen. Let's go ahead and create a new folder, source, and in the source we're going to create app. I'm going to hover over the source and do another folder, components, so that you can see them side by side like this. In the app, we're going to go ahead and write index.tsx. The index is usually the home screen of a directory, and the index from the app directory is the home screen of our application, the first screen that we're going to load when launching our application. A screen is a simple React component. What we need to do here, we need to export a function that will render something, a normal React Native component. Now, if I'm going to reload the application, it should pick up this home and it should render the text home, and we see here at the top. Perfect. Another important file when it comes to Expo Router is a file called _layout.tsx. For now, let me just do export default function, and let's call it a root layout. If I will return here null, we're no longer going to see anything on our screen. Why and what is the layout? The layout is the component that wraps around all the screens in one folder, meaning that the layout from the app folder is going to be wrapped around all the screens. Currently we only have an index screen, but later if we add the camera screen, the event screen, that means that no matter on which screen we are, the layout is going to be the first component that is going to be rendered, and the layout is going to then render the screen that we are redirected to. And because we are returning null here, we are basically saying that, hey, don't render anything, stop here at the layout level. By default, if a layout is missing, behind the scenes it's simply rendering a slot. And a slot, if I'm going to do here style like this, to make sure that the text is in the middle of the screen, a slot is very similar to how rendering the children works, where the children in the layout's case is the screen that we need to render. So think about like slot is simply just taking everything from the index file, for example, in this case, and rendering it on the screen. Another thing that we can render here is a specific navigator, such as a stack. A stack navigator is automatically going to add a header at the top. We can also render a tabs navigator, and if we render it here, it's going to add the tabs at the bottom. And by simply creating more screens, they are going to be added here. Well, in our case, we just need the stack, but it is good to understand like how and why do we need this layout. It's the shared UI between multiple screens. In a tabs navigation, the shared UI is the actual tabs. It can also provide shared logic, but more on that a bit later. Yeah, we have layout, index, components, a stack. Let's also, while we're still here in the layout, set the dark theme on the navigation itself. I'm going to close everything, and in order to set the dark theme, to work with dark theme, first of all, I'm going to go into app.json And here there is the user interface style. It basically overrides the style to the light mode. I'm going to go ahead and say dark here, and it's not going to change much, but it's going to change some minor things like the color of the status bar. At the moment, like, we do not see it because if the interface is dark, the text in the status bar is going to be white. We're going to see it again like in a second, because the next step is to go into our root layout and to import a dark theme and also the theme provider. And if we take this theme provider and wrap it around our stack like this, we can say, hey, the theme that should be used in our navigation system should be the dark theme. If I do that, we see that all of a sudden the headers, the page background, and everything is going to have a dark theme. And this dark theme can also be adjusted because it's just a simple object of colors. So you can change the primary, the background, the card, text, border, notification, and so on. But I'm going to leave it as the default here. Okay. Another thing that I will explain while we are still here, is how can we adjust the options, or how can we configure navigation stuff. For example, if I want to change the title of this screen, where can we do that? Because if I go into the index, we didn't say anything like that the title should be index. Well, by default, Expo Router is going to take the name of a file and use it as a title. But we can adjust the options because Expo Router is using React Navigation behind the scenes, and we can send those options to React Navigation as we were able to do when we didn't use Expo Router. To do that, in our layout, instead of rendering the stack as a self-closing tag, we're going to open it up, and inside it, we're going to run stack.screens. For example, stack.screen, and we have to provide the name here, and the name is going to be exactly the name of a file, so index in this case. And this way we're targeting that specific screen. And with the options, we can either hide the header, or we can change the title to maybe events. And we're going to later see here a list of events. So know that if you have to adjust the options, you can do that through the layout by rendering a stack.screen or maybe a tabs.screen that's also working. You're going to use the name, which is exactly the name of a file, to target that screen, and then you can adjust options. And these options are exactly, for example, React Navigation native stack options. And if you go to the React Navigation documentation for the native stack, for the options, you're going to see, let's say, let's do header. We see that in the documentation there is a header large title option. So if you add it here, say it true, the header is going to become large. And actually that's what I want to do, so I probably will leave it like this. Okay, so everything from React Navigation. Instead of in terms of options, you can use them in our Expo Router as well. Perfect. Let's move on, and with this we have our Expo Router setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do git add, git maybe not yet ready because we can clean up something. Remember, we no longer need the index file from our root folder because that was the old entry point, and we no longer need the app.tsx as well. That was before we started using Expo Router. Now everything in terms of screens are going to be in our app folder. Let's go ahead and do a git add, git commit -m setup Expo Router. Perfect. Hello, Rafael from Portugal. Hello, Kim Nasi. Hello, John. Привет, Вадим. Продвинутые уроки планируются не для новичков. Продвинутые уроки. Let me know what kind of advanced topics you would be interested in. I definitely can consider that. What is the best way to handle edge-to-edge for both iOS and Android? The safe area context. All right, so let's move on to the next step, because the next step is also a bit of configuration, and once we are done with that, we can already start building our UI and our functionality, and I want to get to that point a bit faster to get to the exciting part. For now, the NativeWind is a library that allows us to use Tailwind CSS classes to style our UI. If you don't know Tailwind CSS is a very popular library. It's a utility-first library that helps us style things on the web. It basically has shortcuts to different styles, like Shadow XL as a shadow. I don't know, rounded MD makes something round. And it's super popular if you are coming from web. This is nothing new to you. And with NativeWind, we can use the same classes in React Native, which I really, really love. And it makes me run and build way faster, especially nowadays with AI power development. Like, it's very fast to build this kind of amazing UIs. Let's go ahead and open the documentation for NativeWind and follow the installation guide. We are going to go to the installation with Expo, and what we are going to need is, let's go to the Expo part and let's copy the first command. But in fact, I'm going to change it a bit because Expo, I see here reanimated 3 version. If you're watching this later, it might already be reanimated 4, but in fact, I want to use the animated version that is advised by the Expo SDK version. And with the SDK that I'm using, 54, the advised version of Reanimated is 4, animated 4. I'm not sure if the native window is completely adjusted at the moment of recording this video to support Reanimated 4. I saw some bugs, but in future it's definitely going to work and catch up with the updates. So what I want you to do is go back and simply install the 3 libraries, NativeWind, Reanimated, and Worklets without specifying exactly the version. I will let npx expo install to decide what version to install. We will have some problems, things like that. And this is again something that is going to be fixed a bit later, because Expo SDK 54 is so new that not everything from the industry has caught up. Like, it was launched a couple of days ago. So most probably you're not going to see that. If you don't, just continue working. If not, like, let's see how to fix it. I have two solutions. One of them is, I'm pretty sure, is going to work. It's with peer legacy dependencies, legacy peer dependencies. Another one is going to be specifically Expo SDK 54. I'm going to look into the blog post, and here there is some information about Expo auto linking. And this auto linking might break some stuff. So let's try to add this Expo auto linking legacy shallow React Native linking true flag in our package.json. So in package.json, I'm going to add it like this, but it should be actually an object. So it's Expo, then it's an object. We're going to close the object. We're going to have another key here for auto linking. Then legacy shallow React Native linking true. And let's try to install that again. It's kind of the same thing. So what I'm going to do next is I can use the legacy peer dependencies for npm that we can add at every time we install something, but we can also create a new file .npmrc where we can set this legacy peer deps equal to true. This way npm is going to use the legacy system of handling peer dependencies. So if I do npx expo install again, now it should work. So see which solution work for you, and if you don't need to do them, if you don't need to add them, don't add them. Like if it works from the first time, just continue like that. Because the next step, let's follow up. The next step is to also install Tailwind CSS. And here I'd probably use this version that they recommend. So you can actually go into the documentation and check the version from here, 3.4, 0.5. And let's go ahead and install it like this. Perfect. Let's see the documentation of NativeWind and what is the next step. The next step is to set up Tailwind CSS. For that, we need to run npx tailwind CSS init, and that is going to automatically create this file for us. Let's do that here in our project. And as you can see, it will create this Tailwind config file. Here, we need to adjust this file, and specifically in the content, we need to say that, hey, I'm going to send here this structure, which means that from our source directory, at any folder layer, any file name that ends with gs, gsx, ts, or tsx, those files should be taken into consideration when handling Tailwind classes. So check the syntax and make sure that if you have a source directory, it's here. If you don't have a source directory, you can add different folders below. For another thing that I need here is the presets, and the presets should be required NativeWind/preset. If I check the documentation, I think that's what it is. We need content, which is a little bit different. In my case, I just have source directory. It makes it easier. And it has presets. The next step is to create global CSS file. Let's do that. This stuff, like, we only have to configure it once. Like, I know it's not very exciting, but we're going to configure it once and then forget about it. And it's going to actually make it everything easier for us later. So stick with me for a second. And I highly encourage you to follow the documentation because things might change in future. Now, after we created the global CSS file, we need to adjust the Babel and later the Metro as well. If we look in our directory, we do not have a Babel, nor do we have a Metro files. We can manually create them, but another best practice or a cool hint is to use npx expo customize. If you run this command, you can choose with a space and then moving and then another space, you can choose the files that you want to adjust. So with a space, I selected Babel config and Metro config. Let's do enter. And the Babel config is here. And in Babel, we need to do these presets. So I'm going to copy them and I'm going to replace them with mine. If you have like already some other presets or other configuration, make sure you're not overriding that. In my case, I knew that I can safely replace these presets with the previous ones. And for the Metro config, we need to import this with NativeWind. So Metro config, we need to import with NativeWind, and where we are exporting the config, we need to put it inside the with NativeWind, and I think we need some configuration as well. Yeah, it's this input. And as a second parameter to this function, we need to point to the global CSS, which is going to be all the styles from Tailwind. Now, last step, I think the last step should be to import the global CSS file in the root of our project. Here it says app.js because that was the entry point of application. For now, because we are using Expo Router, the entry point of our application is the root layout. A layout wraps around screens, and the layout directly from the app folder is going to wrap any screen that you're going to be in the application, because it's the first layout, it's the first thing that is being run. So that's why it's an important file for us, especially for global providers and things that we need to run at the global layer, such as importing the global CSS. But because we are two folders deep, source and then app, we're going to add another layer of double dots, basically go up folder, another up folder, and only then take the global CSS. And with that, I think we are ready. And if I go to index.tsx and to this home, if I send here a class name, such as text 2XL and font bold, and if I save, let's see what's gonna happen. I don't know. I can stop the server and start it with clear again because we did some changes to the Metro. But now if I reload, the home, I don't know where is it, class name, BG red. Yeah, the BG red, yeah. Everything goes good. I just needed text white and BG neutral 800, something like that. All right, so as you can see, now we can style our components with this property class name, and these are Tailwind CSS classes that you can go directly on Tailwind CSS website and documentation and say, how do I add margin or background gradient? If I copy this BG linear to R from and to and add it here instead of this one, yeah, maybe I already took like something that is not working with a new SDK. BG linear to blue. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. But if it's BG normal color, yeah, you can do margins and everything else. Perfect. All right. Okay. But let me finish the installation because there is a couple of small steps. This is mainly for web, but this is by default, and this is TypeScript optional. Highly encourage you to do that because it's just one file that we need to create with this specific name. Just copy it from here, create it in the root folder. Is it already there? For some reason it's already there. Maybe it was auto-generated, but if not, simply add this triple slash line, keep it exactly as it is like this, and it's going to add TypeScript support for our classes Tailwind as well. And yeah, that's it. You can try it out. There is also some step in the editor setup. What I encourage you to do is to go into extensions and find Tailwind CSS IntelliSense, and this is going to provide you with autocomplete features for Tailwind classes. Super helpful, and also probably healthy as well, and gives you autocomplete for things, and you don't have to remember all of these values. Like, you can simply do that and select. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and commit the changes because this is our configuration. Git add, git commit, NativeWind installation, git status. And let's continue. Vector icons. I had some issues with vector icons because by default they are automatically installed. So if I will just go vector icons expo and find one of the icons here, and let's copy it, and let's render it in the index after the text with color white by importing from Expo vector icons. We are going to see that it's not loaded and cannot find module Expo vector icons, and even like other families as well, like Unicos. Let's do this simple one, add. White. Actually, this one works. So yeah, maybe we do not actually have to do anything, because I was following like the red arrow from here that cannot find module vector icons. Most probably that is some misconfiguration of my editor, because we see that we can render them and it's working. And that is the expected behavior because Expo is coming with the vector icons pre-built. So unless something has changed in the SDK 54, everything should work fine. So I'm just going to simply ignore this red line because I see that it is working and I see the icon on the screen. Okie dokie, so I'm going to skip this Expo vector icon, and the next step for us is going to be all ready to start working and building our UI. The first screen is going to be the camera screen because that's the most important one. So we are done with configuration. If you, however, had some issues or troubles, I'm going to look what I'm going to do. I'm going to do git checkout -b and create a new branch called start. I'm going to create this repository on GitHub real quick photo sharing. It's going to be public. I'm going to connect it, and I'm going to do git push origin start, and I'm going to do git. You don't have to do that. I'm just going to show you in a second how to easier get started from the same point as I am if you had any issues. Git push origin main. So look, the GitHub repository that you're going to get inside the guide. I'm actually adding it right now. So at the top, if I reload, you're going to see the source code link here. And in the source code, in the repository, there are two folders, start and main. For some reason, it created start as default. I'm going to change that a bit later. Maybe I can do that very fast. Default branch. Yeah. So the main is going to contain all the code at the end of the tutorial, but start is going to contain the code at this moment in the video, with all the configuration of Expo Router and NativeWind setup. So if you want to skip the configuration stuff, you can easily just go ahead and either move to the start, download as zip, then do npm install, open it and continue from the same point. Or if you can simply clone this repository and switch to the start branch. Perfect. Let's go ahead and continue. Hello, Tardine. How are you? Hello, not only dev. With Expo Camera, are you able to access a picture metadata like location? We're going to check that out. Perfect. Let's go ahead and continue, because the next step for us is going to be to already start building our UI. And as I was saying, we're going to start with the camera screen, because this is going to be quite an important screen for us. For that, let's go ahead and start by creating a new screen in our project. The new screens is going to be inside our application, and we can create a new file by calling it camera.tsx. And let's do export default function camera, return, view, and add text saying camera. Let's go ahead and import a view and a text from React Native, and that's it. But how do we navigate to that camera screen? We can do that if we go back to the home screen, which is our index, and instead of anything that we have here, let's simply render a link component imported from Expo Router, and a link component class name text wide. Yeah. A link component has an href property where we can specify the URL where we want to redirect. URL, very similar, it works how URLs works on the web. Basically, we have camera, which is our file name, and it comes after the slash because it's right in the root folder. If we would have folders like folders, we would have maybe here events/camera. But more on that later. For now, because we are in the root, we start with slash and the file name is camera. If now I'm going to press on this text open camera, we are navigated there, as you can see. Perfect. I know why it has some whites behind. And from the layout itself, we can go ahead and render another stack.screen with a name camera, and we can say that the title is camera, but we can also say header shown equal to false to hide the whole default header that comes there, because we are going to create our custom header. Or maybe we don't have to do custom headers. Let's not do custom headers actually. It's going to be even harder. What we can do is we can say, hey, back button, display mode of a back button is going to be minimal. And when it's minimal, it's not going to show the name in the back. It's just going to be an icon. That's nice. And another thing is that if I go into the camera and say that this view is going to have a class name like this, and let's do also BG red, something like that. We see that the view itself only starts here. But if from the layout in the header, we're going to say header transparent true, the header is going to become transparent, and the view, the page itself is going to be all the way till the top. And I think we can also adjust the header blur effect. And what values are there? There is light, supported values. Extra light, light, or dark. Or regular. Yeah, maybe I'm going to use a dark here. Perfect. Now we see a blur effect. We see the view, and it's also transparent. Perfect. And if we're going to need stuff on the right, which at the moment we do not need, we can do that by rendering a header right and adding like something like an icon. I don't know, share outline. Oh, share outline. And here you can do as child. No, you can do true class name, margin right, margin left, something like that. Maybe 2. Yeah, I think that looks good. So you can have icons here as well. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So now, what's the next steps? We created a new we created a new screen. We set up the header. The next step is to actually start working with a camera. For that, we're going to use Expo camera package. And here is the documentation of it. I can give you the docs right there. So the first step, let's go ahead and follow the guide to install and set up Expo camera by installing it in our project. npx expo install Expo camera. Configuration in app config. We can configure this Expo camera module on the native side, such as setting the permission strings and so on. We can do that with the Expo plugin. For that, I'm going to copy this part, like this array that has two values. One is the Expo camera string and the second one is the object with configuration. And I'm going to go into our app.json. In the plugins, after Expo Router, I'm going to paste this array, which is actually a tuple, two values. First value name, second is its configuration. Okay, perfect. Going to the next step is the usage. And here is a nice example. In my camera app, I don't have actually anything valuable there, so I can probably go ahead and copy the whole camera usage example, and I'm going to paste it here. Like I'm going to remove and paste it here. Instead of app, I'm going to do camera screen, which is also optional, but just for it to make more sense. We have what? A hook called use camera permissions. It's important to first ask the user for permissions to use the camera. Without that, we're not going to be able to use it. First step, if their permissions is null or undefined, that means that we are still loading. So at that moment, we can show even an activity indicator, which is a loading screen, activity indicator imported from React Native. If permissions are defined, but the .granted is false, that means that we need permissions. So here you can see that we are showing a button with grant permissions. It's going to call a function request permissions that we get also from here. Then later, that means that we have access to the camera and we are rendering this camera view. A camera view is going to show the camera. If I open this page, we get into this grant permissions button. If I press on grant permissions, we see that this experience needs permissions. Let's press allow. After that, we are going to see a black screen because with the iOS simulator, we do not have a simulated camera. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the terminal. I'm going to go back here, press C to clear everything. I'm gonna scan this QR code with my phone. Come on. And I'll check how to show you as well. With phone mirroring. Come on. Phone mirroring is not working here, but with a media player. Yeah, here is the screen of my physical device, and you're gonna see if I grant permissions, we are going to see the camera here. Hello there. And if I press on the flip camera, here I am. Hello. So everything is working here. Let me move this out of the way. What we're going to need to do is work with what we have here. Let's render the footer with the buttons. Footer is here with the buttons. Button container. It has this position absolute. I'm actually going to delete most of the styles here and style it with class names. I don't want position there. Can I do background color gray? This gray or red is the camera. And I want the footer not to be position absolute, but to take some space from the camera. Then instead of the flip camera, we're going to have something else. First of all, let's add a pressable component, which is a normal view that has on-press events. And let's give it a class name here with a background white, with fully round to make it a circle, and with width 10 and height 10. Let's make sure to import pressable from React Native. And with that, we should see a circle here. Bottom 64 we don't need, that's what's messing up with that. px padding x, I don't think we need anything there. Maybe we need some padding like 4 for everything. Reload. Maybe we're going to need justify center item center. This width is going to be 20 maybe. Yeah, this is the shutter basically. And we can add a bit more space here at the bottom because it's right where the gesture for home swiping is. Like basically that's not the safe area. Or alternatively, we can import safe area view from React Native safe area context and render, instead of a view for our footer, let me call it footer, let's change this view to a safe area view, both the opening and the closing tag. And you're going to see that now if I go to open camera, it's going to have more space here at the top and the bottom. Maybe camera, I don't know why we don't see it, but what I need in the safe area view is also to say that only add spacing at the bottom. Yeah, here it is. So at the top it doesn't add more than this 4 padding, but at the bottom it adds more because it's in the safe area view. Perfect. Next step is like when we press this button, like white button, we need to take a picture. Taking a picture happens by calling a function on the camera. But to have like this is going to be function take photo, console log take photo. We attach this one as a on press here. We're going to see like now if I press on this button, we call the function. But how do we actually snap a picture? For that, we need to get access to the camera by assigning a reference to this camera view, and then we can call some functions on that camera. For that, at the top, we're going to need the camera as a use reference, and this use reference should be imported from React. Now, it starts with null, but it's going to be a reference towards a camera view. Next, we need to connect this reference called camera with a reference of a camera view. Now, when we press on the button in the take photo, we can call camera.current to get the value of that reference. And if there is anything, we can call take picture asynchronous. We can make this function async, and we can say const photo equal await, and then we can console log the photo. We can also console log it as JSON stringified photo with null and 2 to see it properly structured. So now if I go ahead and press open camera and then snap a photo, we see that the height of a this is the URI of a photo, this is the height, and this is the width. And we can also see it on a physical device. Like if I go here, we see how it looks. We can snap it, take a photo, and we see here width, we see height, and we see the local URI where this photo was stored. Perfect. Lovely, lovely. So now we can take photos. And even though we can, we can add, let's add this, at least these buttons at the bottom of a camera view that would at least allow us to change the camera from front to back. Because we have it already here, toggle camera facing. What we're going to do is, I think either we're going to do it with absolute at the end, or we can open this camera view up. Come on, where is it? Camera view. Camera view. And if I add here a view with class name, height, okay, something works. But if I do height 10, then it's not flex 1. I think I need it absolute actually at the bottom. So background neutral 900, but I can also do it like this. I don't need height, I just need padding 4, and inside it I'm going to need basically some icons. Let's see if from camera outline, camera, I don't know. I think I will open the project I was preparing somewhere on the side so I can take, oh no. Give me a second. So let me do npm start. Why now using native? Because native is more serious. What do you mean exactly by native? Do you need to do a pre-build to use the camera? No, the Expo camera is also available in Expo Go. But by the end of the tutorial, like, we most probably will do a pre-build at some point. Let me find what I'm looking for in terms of a camera icon there. Camera reverse, I think. Open camera, yeah, it's here. So if on press, I'm going to add toggle camera facing. What's going to happen is, look, if I'm here and I'm going to press this icon, come on. Maybe it's not working. Let's do a reload. So open camera. From here, yes, it works. It changes from back to front. Hello, Catalin. Hello, Didar. How are you guys? Didar is saying, I used to watch you as a beginner, now I'm watching as a CTO. That's amazing. Okay, so we are good with the camera. We can take photos. Let's go ahead and say git add git commit take photos with Expo camera. Git push origin main. We didn't need the blur but header because we already used the default header, so everything is good there. All right, the next step is going to be what do we do with these images that we take with the camera. What we're going to do is we're going to upload them to the cloud. And for that, we're going to use Cloudinary, our partner for today's tutorial. And the thing is that these photos we're going to need to share with other people. So at the moment of taking these pictures, they are stored on our device. If we need to share them with our friends, for them to also be able to see these pictures, we're going to need to upload them somewhere, to upload it to a cloud. There are different solutions where you can upload them, starting with S3 buckets or Supabase. However, when it comes to use cases where you are heavy on the media, especially images and videos, Cloudinary is the tool to go, because not only it offers optimization tools and a CDN, but it also has a lot of features that other tools do not have, such as on-the-go transformations or AI replacement, AI generation, tag management, even finding like different things in your videos, like a lot of tools and benefits for managing this and working with these media files. So what do we need to do? Let's go ahead and create a free account by following this URL. You're also going to find in the description of our video. And after creating your free account, I think I already have one. Let's go ahead and log in. Give me just 1 second. Here it is. What you need to do is you need to have an environment. It's either you're going to have it automatically, or you can simply press on the environment at the top and create add a new environment. Free accounts have access to only one environment, but that's where, like, environments is where we are going to store our assets. Basically think about an environment as a project. We're going to need this environment ID a bit later, but for now, let's see what we have to do. We also need to make sure that we have at least one upload preset, because we are going to upload files, and an upload preset is a set of configuration that we're going to use to upload files with different that will upload automatically these configs. Let's go ahead into the settings, into upload, and here check if you already have an upload configuration. If not, like, maybe I'm going to delete what I have. Let's create one called sample preset. Signing mode, it's going to be unsigned because we're going to make it easier for us to upload images and make them public. For the folder, let's do here photo sharing folder. Then we're going to let auto-generated IDs that are going to be harder to guess. And then the display name is going to be the file name that was uploaded. Let's just click save, and we're going to have a new preset called sample preset. Let's go ahead and follow the next step. And the next step is to install the Cloudinary SDK. I'm going to open up their GitHub repository for the React Native SDK. And I'm going to follow up with first installing Cloudinary React Native by running npm install Cloudinary React Native. Then we're going to go ahead and in the source folder, let's create another folder called lib. And inside lib, we're going to create a file called Cloudinary, which is going to contain configuration and ways we can integrate with Cloudinary. Meanwhile, let's also create a new file in the root folder, either called .env or env.local. I recommend env.local because it will automatically, it's part of the gitignore file, so it's not going to be added to your repository. And this is where we are going to set up environment variables. Expo supports environment variables, and there are two types of variables, private one and public one. To create a public environment variable, we prefix it with expo public and then the name of the environment variable. For example, in our case, we are going to do expo public Cloudinary cloud name equal, and we're going to give a value. All their values that start with expo public, they're going to be embedded in the source code of our client-side code inside our application. So make sure you're not sharing secrets as public variables. We're going to go into our Cloudinary and we are going to copy this name of our environment. And this is going to be our cloud name. So at the top in your environments, we just copy the name of that environment. Now, inside the cloudinary.ts, we are going to create the Cloudinary instance by simply specifying the cloud name. So if I copy this one here, this is also in the documentation. You can double check that by opening the docs and seeing how do they set up the Cloudinary instance. And I have it here. Before moving on, I will also add the upload to Cloudinary function. So let me just copy everything from here. I'm going to explain it in a second. And this upload to Cloudinary function is just gonna call the upload method imported from Cloudinary React Native. It's going to send the Cloudinary instance connecting to our project, and it's going to upload the file based on the URI that we send to this when we call upload to Cloudinary. Then it's simply going to return this promise so that we can do a wait on this. Like we are transforming from a callback way of handling asynchronous calls to a promise based. Like it's a couple of lines, but it's going to be easier to work with this. And this is an important thing. The options that we're sending here has the upload preset, sample preset. This is coming from exactly the presets that we created in the configuration, upload, here in the name. So make sure that it matches this name. So I see that it matches. It means that everything is good. Okay, now with this upload to Cloudinary, we can go ahead and give it a try. We can go into our camera file. in our camera file, let's go at the top and say import, upload to Cloudinary from our library Cloudinary, but it should be probably like relative path like this. And where we take this photo, we know that the result of that photo will contain the local URI. Let's go ahead and say if photo does not have a URI, so I'm going to do if it does not have, we're going to stop here because something happened that we didn't take a photo. However, if there is a URI, we're going to say const Cloudinary response equal await upload to Cloudinary, and we are sending there the URI of the photo. Let's go ahead and console log the response from Cloudinary. And if I open the logs and go ahead and take a photo from my physical device, you're not going to see it. It's on my other screen, but I'm going to try to take a photo here. Nothing happened because I have to reload the application. It doesn't want to reload. Come on. Open camera, taking a picture, and let's scroll here. Here we have it. This is the response from Cloudinary. We have a public ID and we have a URL here as well, and a secure URL. If I click on this URL and open it up, here we have it. Here is my screen. Perfect. That means that everything worked correctly. And if we go to our Cloudinary, go to assets, folders, and here in the photo sharing, we're going to see this file that was just uploaded. And it has this public ID. Perfect. That's amazing. Now, photos that we are taking on a physical device, we are automatically uploading to the cloud using the Cloudinary provider. Next, we are going to render these photos. And let's actually see how would we render one of these photos. For that, we are most probably going to have a page of one of the events. So let me go ahead and in the application create a new file called event.tsx. Let's do export default event, a view which will render a text like this. Now from the index, I'm going to add another link that will go event details, and we'll go to /event. If I add here a gap 4 to have some spacings, we're going to press event details. That navigates to another screen. And if I go ahead here and do text white, we have it here, event. Perfect. But how do we render, for example, this image from Cloudinary? If you look at the documentation, you're going to see that for that, we need an advanced image imported from Cloudinary React Native. So let's maybe import it here. And we need to render this advanced image that will need the CLD image, which is going to be an image instance that we can initialize by importing the Cloudinary client from our Cloudinary library, and with a Cloudinary client, we can say, give me the image with the following public ID. I'm going to go in my console and I'm going to select one of the images and I'm going to copy the public ID from here. I'm going to say, hey, render this image here with width and height CLD EMG, like this. So if I go to the event details, here we have it. The image. If I look here, yeah, style, width, aspect ratio. Can I give it a class name with full? Yeah, I can also use class name with full, and I can give aspect 3/4, something like that. And the height is going to be auto. Doesn't work like that. Full. Anyway, maybe simply style here. Oh, I needed to remove a height from there. And that means that even with a class name is going to work, right? Yep. 3/4 to be like more. And height auto doesn't even need it. So like this, it's going to be perfect. The cool thing about Cloudinary is that not only can we load this image like this, we can also optimize how we load this image. Because right now, if I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, open the debugger by pressing J, and if I'm gonna go into the network, and if I will reload the page and go to the event details, we're going to see here an image. And if I look here at the size of this request, we see 1.4 megabytes. This, if we look into our dashboard, 1.4 megabytes is the full file size. But the full file size is quite large, especially for a small device, and especially like if we don't want to load it with a full quality. For that, we can optimize this by saying that, let me do .width. Let me check transformations. Cloudinary docs. Image transformations. Resize. And it's going to be a thumbnail that comes from resize actions. So I'm going to say, hey, .resize using a thumbnail action. This thumbnail action import from Cloudinary URL generation actions resize and have a height of 200 and a width of 200. If now I'm going to go to event details, it's still going to load, but now if we look at the request for this image, we see that if if I clean, because there's total requests, and go here, we see that it's now 11 kilobytes. From 1.4 megabytes to 11 kilobytes, that's a lot of saving. And think about when you have hundreds of images, and especially like, let's say you have small avatars of users. They usually upload full-size pictures. If you don't resize them on the fly, then you are loading so much data from the internet, and that makes your application super slow. So with these kind of things, you can adjust how you want to resize. Definitely you don't want these kind of values. I just gave an example. For example, here you can do const width equal use window dimensions and get this width like this. And for the height, we can take width multiply by 0.74 because the height should be more. So it should be 1 or multiplied by the 3/4. 3/4, no, by 4/3 maybe. So now it's the most optimized size, because we say, give me the size of this image equal to the size of a screen that I'm loading here. So if now I will look here in the image that was sent, it has, where is it? I don't know where is the preview. It's 35 kilobytes and it's 402 pixels by 536. Exactly what I need. But the cool thing is that not only can you resize things, you can also transform stuff. For example, before resizing, I can do here hey, add an effect, specifically an artistic effect. So I'm going to import artistic filter. Is it artistic filter? Yeah. I'm going to say after resize, here it's ending, add an effect called artistic filter. Wait a second. Artistic. Where did I import it from? Artistic like this. Oh, it's artistic filter from actions effects. And it can be like this. And it has a filter. We can add incognito, and that is going to be a filter applied on that image like this. And we can see more filters. Applying image effect and filters. Here are different kind of filters. That maybe we're going to be able to add to make all the images from an event like with a specific filter, and let users choose that filter. You can also pixelate stuff. You can also change the sepia. and a lot of things. You can also enhance with AI, a lot of stuff. But anyway, we now have the fundamentals of uploading images to Cloudinary and rendering them optimized in our application. Let me go ahead and do git add git commit -m Cloudinary setup. And let's continue. Are you using NativeWind? Yes, well, I'm using NativeWind. Okay, so before we move forward, which is going to be the Supabase backend, how are you feeling, guys? How are you doing? Do you enjoy this so far? Well, I wanted to not forget to remind you about something. If you're watching this tutorial up until now, like, I'm pretty sure you're pretty serious about building mobile applications. And if you have ideas of building and launching your own applications, or maybe you don't have ideas, but you want to become an indie developer and you want to launch your own apps, then you're in the right place, because we're doing the same internally, and now we're looking for a group of 10 developers that would join the next cohort of our incubator. So yes, you heard me right. We are bringing back the incubator, which we ran 2 times in the past with amazing results. And in this incubator, we are helping developers, a very small group of developers, build and launch application on the market. Here I'm talking about individual coaching when it comes to technical problems, but not only. We help you define the business model. We help you find ideas. We help you market them so that when you launch, you don't launch to cricket noises. You have users from day one, and you also monetize your application for day one. So yes, the incubator is coming soon. If you're interested, if you have ideas of applications that you'd like to build, you can join the waitlist now at notjust.dev/incubator. Make sure to join the waitlist, and I'm going to send you all the important information you have to know about the incubator and how to join. And just as a side note, this is a paid product. It's quite expensive, but we work very much like side by side with you to help you build and launch your application. And the benefit is that you keep 100% equity of your project. We're not taking anything. So if you're interested, make sure to join the waitlist. And we are preparing something for October. That's the only thing that I can say at the moment. Perfect. Let's see where we are at now. The next step for us is going to be the Supabase backend, right? So give me just 1 second. I'm going to take some water and we are going to continue. Okay, let's continue. Hey, Rogelio, thank you very much. I appreciate it. How are you? How is your startup doing? So let's go ahead. Next step. I'm going to close some of the things. Yeah, the next step is Supabase. Why do we need Supabase? we are going to need it for two things. First of all, authentication to allow users to create their account, and this way we can manage who is allowed to do what. And the next step is going to be managing data. So we need a database for a couple of things. First of all, we need to manage events. Users will be able to create events for specific dates, and then we can share a QR code for that event and other users can join that event. So we already talking about two things, events and user event attendance or membership, where user will scan the QR code and they will join an event. And then when you take a picture, we're also going to store some metadata about that picture in the database so that we can have a list of images. We can add also some rules where every user can upload maximum 10 photos. That can also be a fun, small feature in our project. But in order to do that, as you can imagine, we need a backend. For that, we're going to use Supabase. Let's go ahead and open up supabase.com. Let's go ahead in the dashboard, zoom in, not just media, and let's do a new project. Let's say photo sharing is the name. I'm going to copy the generated password and I'm going to create a new project. Okay, so we have a couple of things here. We have the project keys, which we can also take. Let's follow the guide that I created. So then the first thing is to create a Supabase project. We just did that. The next one is to run the user management starter, which we can find from our SQL editor only after the project has finished setting up, which usually take like very fast. It's already done. Let's go to SQL editor. And here in the quick starts, there is a quick start called user management starter. What this does is it creates a table called profiles in the public schema, and it adds a new profile every time a user signs up. Signing up is managed internally by the Supabase in a different schema, in the auth schema, but with this setup, every time a user creates an account, we're going to create a profile, and that profile is something that we as users, as developers, have access to, and we can manage, update, change, create relationships, and more. So let's go ahead and just press run after opening this user management starter. And if we go now into the table editor, under the schema public, we're going to see a new table called profiles. Later on, when we integrate the authentication, things are going to appear here. For now, I want to skip a little bit of authentication because it's not the most important part in our project. We still have to kind of finish the main feature of our application. That is actually how I think when we are approaching our own applications that we're building and launching in our portfolio. I'm trying to focus most of our energy on making the main feature, the main thing of application work really well, and only then I do some stuff such as authentication, setting up, things like that. But I see a lot of developers start the other way around, and they start with figuring out how to do light theme and dark theme before they have a working prototype, a working application. So that's one of the things that we focus a lot in our incubator to help you set the right priorities, because we are trying to get into the habit of iterating and launching fast and improving as we go. But for that to happen, we need to focus on what's important first. And in our case here, the most important thing is to be able to create events and add photos to events. So for that reason, I'm going to skip a bit the authentication. I'm going to go to the tables and I'm going to create some tables. First of all, I'm going to create the event table. So let's go ahead in the table editor and let's press new table. Because we don't have authentication, I'm going to deselect this row level security. This is going to be a little bit less secure, but for the beginning it's okay, because again, I want to see this working. Let's go to the columns. I'm going to change the ID to be a UUID, which is a little bit like, it's a long string, which is a bit less, which is harder to guess. We're going to use the event ID for the QR code, so I want this to be a bit harder to guess. And let's add another column called name, which is going to be the name of the event. I'm going to say that this is a text and it's actually required. So I'm going to deselect is nullable. What else do we need for an event? Maybe later we're going to need like dates, we're going to need other configuration, but this is the minimum thing that we need. So for that reason, I'm going to say save. Let's give it a name, events. I forgot about that. Let's do save. And yes, we have here the events. The next step is going to be events memberships. Basically, now that we have events and profiles, we need to connect them together, because users will scan QR codes and they will join this way events. The relationship between events and users is many to many, because one user can join many events and one event can be joined by many users. When we have many to many relationships in SQL databases, we need a pivot table, a table in between that will do this connection. So let's create this table in between and let's call it event memberships. And one line in this table is going to represent one membership. And a membership needs two things. It needs to know who is the user and also to what event he signed up. I'm going to add user ID and event ID, and I'm going to add some foreign keys to connect them between the tables. I'm going to press add foreign key. I'm going to connect first to the table in the public schema, to the events table, and the event ID from our table here, from the membership table, is going to connect to the ID of the events table. Here, let's go cascade and cascade, meaning that if the event is deleted, we also delete memberships, not to have memberships with to an event that was deleted. So let's click save and let's add another foreign key, this time towards the profiles, where the user ID from our event membership table links to a profile with the same ID. Now with a cascade as well, if a user is deleted, it will delete his memberships as well. Let's do save. Do we need anything else here? Event membership, where is it? I think it's this one. No, I think that's the only thing that we need. And maybe you don't even need the ID, because you can make these two, user ID and event ID, the primary key. And if you do that, it's going to enforce that you cannot add the same user to the same event twice, because both of these values, the combination of these two values, should be always unique. I will scroll up and also disable row level security for now. I think this one looks good now. User ID, event ID, and created that, meaning like when did the user join. That's good. Let's go save. Perfect. The last table that we need is our assets table, and an asset is either a photo or a video, and it's going to be, first of all, part of an event because we add a photo to an event. It's going to be by a user, so I can do user ID, and it's going to have to link towards Cloudinary to this public ID of our photo or video. So we can say, how did we call it here? I think we called it asset ID. Asset ID. So basically a lot of ideas here. Now, the asset ID is going to be a text, but event ID is going to be a foreign key. So let's add it through the foreign key here. It's going to say that event ID will link to the events. So event ID here links to the event ID. If the event is deleted, do we want to delete assets as well? Most probably yes. Or no. Or yes. Maybe yes. Now, user ID is also needs to be a foreign key towards profiles. Now, the user ID links towards the ID of the profile. And if the user is deleted, the photo that he uploaded also is deleted. I don't think so. Like, this is the only time when I don't think like a user deleting his app should delete the photos that he uploads to other events. Imagine he comes, like one user comes to your wedding, he adds some really nice photos, and when he deletes his account, I don't want to lose that photos, even though he's no longer using the app. So I think the action when the item is removed should be set to null and say that, hey, there is a photo, but we don't know who uploaded it. So that's good. If it's updated, like if ID is updated, we can update it here as well. This is totally fine. Save. And I think that's it. Created that, event ID, asset ID. Basically, what image was uploaded, by who, and to which event. That's like basically it. Let's do save. Okay. Let's manually go ahead and add some events here by pressing the events, and let's do insert row, and let's say name is, I don't know, by names birthday. And I'm going to add another one, I don't know, John's wedding. Okay, now we're going to be able to query them and see them in our application. Let's go to our guide. And the next step we need to do is to install the Supabase client. I'm not sure if I need that libv. Let me just double check something. What we need to do is we need to go into a terminal and say npx or npm install Supabase.js and the React Native async storage probably. So these two things. Like this. Hey Frank, thank you very much for the donation. I really appreciate it. This looks so cool. Is there a way to make the photos go private after a couple of days on the feed? There's definitely a way. Yeah, there is definitely a way. Like, I'm not sure if I will manage to show that how to do, but we can add to the asset table, we can add here visibility. And we can have rules on when we update this visibility. So if the visibility is like hidden, we don't show it to the guest, we only show it to the owners, maybe. What other apps like this POV are doing is they hide all the images until the event has finished. So people don't see the images, but they see it the next day. That's also a cool feature that we can probably also do it through these kind of properties. Hey Catalin, how are you doing? Long time no see. Yeah, I've been quite busy building apps, running the bootcamp, preparing the incubator. But yeah, it was a busy summer, even though I didn't do a lot of content. But I'm back and very excited. Let's go ahead and where are we now? We installed the Supabase client. We need to add some configuration keys to our environment. So let's copy these two environment variables to our env.local. And here we need to set the Supabase URL, which we can get by going to the project settings, data API, and here is the URL. Let's copy it and let's put it here. The anon key, which stands for anonymous key, is under API keys, and you see here anon, or also known as public key. This, as you can see, it's a public key and it's safe to be shared because in a lot of cases, like, you need to protect your data with row level security, which we disabled, but we can enable a bit later. The service key, the secret, is something that you don't want to share with anyone, and you don't want to put into a variable with Expo public prefix. But now we are good here with anonymous key and the URL. And we can go into the source application, not application, but lib, and create the supabase.ts file that will import create client from Supabase and will create the client with the URL coming from environment variables and with the anonymous key also from environment variables. We can also do some options here specifically for authentication. When it comes to React Native, the authentication needs to store on a device a token to remember the user who signed in. So we need to specify what storage provider to use. In this case, we installed and set this async storage to be used. And we can add this auto refresh, persist session, and detect session URL configuration as well. Whew. Now, having this Supabase client, we can go ahead in our, let's say, application index, and we can go ahead and say, hey, in a use effect, when we open this page, I'm going to import use effect from React, and I'm going to import Supabase from our library. Use effect is a hook that helps us run a function when some things are changed. Because we are giving here an empty dependency array, this function inside the use effect is going to run when the home screen is going to be mounted the first time. So if I'm here, we should start get session, then data console log data. Don't think we're going to see anything. Session is null because we didn't sign up. But what I wanted to do here is supabase.from. Here we can say events table, select everything with a star, and then console log. So if I do there, let's say data, console log data, and I can do here a JSON stringify to be able to see it properly formatted. So just like that, we connected to the Supabase, we queried the events table, we selected all the columns, and we see here in the response of a Supabase request, we have a data and it has two items, Vadim's birthday and John's wedding, because this is the data that we have in our table here in Supabase Cloud. If we have that, that means that we have configured and set up Supabase correctly, and we are going to be able to move forward. Before we do that, I'm going to show you that if I highlight over this data, we see that it has this response any. It doesn't know what type it is. However, with Supabase, you can generate types, automated types based on the database schema. This is very helpful, and it makes our application, it makes it way easier to work with Supabase. It always knows what data you are working with, and it can prevent a lot of bugs, especially when working with deep relationships, when querying events with their assets and assets with their owners. It will know exactly what you requested. For that, you need to set up and configure a bit, but what you want to do is, first of all, do npx supabase login to log into your Supabase with your CLI, and then npx supabase init to set up the local project. I'm going to do that here. Supabase init. Let's do yes, maybe. Yeah. And that already created a Supabase folder for us. Nothing much there for now. But the next one is, yeah, we need to provide here the project ID. But if I run another command called npx supabase link -- project ref, and then provide here the project reference by going to our project settings and taking the ID from the general. In that case, I'll link it, and it's going to be easier for me to work with Supabase CLI later, because it's going to know like what project we're working with. And when generating these types, I will do it a bit easier by saying npx supabase gen types TypeScript, and I don't need to provide the ref. I will say simply the linked project and drop them into the source types database types.ts. It's not gonna work because we need to go into the source and create this folder called types. And if I do this command again, it's going to generate this database types file, which contains information about our tables, about our columns, how do we select, how do we insert, what data we get, what data we need to send when updating, and so on. And in order for us not to have to remember this command always or to find it, I can copy it and I can go into the package.json, and under the scripts we can say supa types. And when we run here npm run supa types, it's going to execute this command and update the types after we are going to change our database schema and database tables. Perfect. Now that we have that file with the database types, there is one small thing that we need to do. Back in our library Supabase, where we create this client, we are going to import database from these types. We're going to send it as a type to this create client database. Just like that, now whenever we use this Supabase and we query things or we work with it, it's going to know what tables we have, what data types they have. For example, if I go back in the application index, if I hover over the data, we see that the data has already ID, created at, and name. So it's much safer. And if I'm going to say not only query the events information, but for each event also query the assets information. If I hover, it already has the assets information. So every event will have an array of assets with the asset ID, event ID, user IDs, and so on. Perfect. That's really cool and powerful. So for now, we have set up our Supabase. We have this one, we have this one. Authentication. Let me first do git add git commit -m Supabase setup. And let me think about authentication. Do I want to do that, or what are we doing with authentication? I don't want to invest a lot of time in this tutorial showing authentication, because it's going to take a lot of time to show like email or social based auth. Maybe we can do that in the extended build after we finish this public one. We usually implement a couple more features for our club members, our YouTube members. But the anonymous sign-in is something that might be easier for us to implement, because anonymous sign-in is a way to sign in as a guest, and it still creates an account that is going to later be deleted, but it gives you kind of the same possibilities as having a proper account. So I think it's going to help us do some of these things easier and better. So anonymous sign in. Calling sign in anonymous creates the account. Sign in anonymously. So I think I'm going to do that in the layout here. I'm going to say, hey, in a use effect, I'm going to, let's define a const sign in if needed, an asynchronous function. And I'm going to say, hey, first I'm going to get the session. If there is no session, I'm going to sign in anonymously. So later on in the application, if I do get session dot data, if I reload, session is null. I think I need to enable it as well. So back here to authentication in my project, if I do sign in providers, we need to enable allow anonymous sign-ins. Save changes. Now if I reload, what did we do wrong? Use effect must not return anything. Did we return anything? Oh, it doesn't have this, doesn't need that. Oh, here it is. So now it already has a session. That means that now we can take the user and do things as an authenticated user. For example, in the database or in the table editor, if I'm going to go into the profile, we already have a user here. We're going to be able to, when creating an event, to say that, hey, this event is created by a user. For example, I will edit this table saying that an event is going to have an owner or user ID. Maybe let's actually call owner ID, because in case of an event, like it's not clear what user ID means. But owner ID is who created it. So we can add a foreign key, say that we are going to link towards profiles where the owner ID is going to link to the ID of a profile. And yeah, if profile is deleted, I think we cascade delete the events as well. Okay, good. Now the only thing is that I'm thinking to extract this information about authentication into context provider, so that we can easily take information about the authenticated user anywhere in the application. Because I don't want to do this get session every time I need information or the ID of a currently signed in user. For that reason, I will create a new folder called providers, and let's do the auth provider.tsx. Usually when I have a provider, I start with create context from React. I first define the auth context type. I need the user information that is going to be a Supabase user. We can also have a is authenticated as well. Now that I have this context, I usually export a default function of provider, which receives the children and renders the auth context that we create around the children. This way we can use it easier in our application, and everything that we wrap it around is going to have access to this context provider and this data. Now from our layout, I'm going to copy this use effect. And I'm going to move it to the auth provider, because the auth provider is handling things about Supabase users. Let's also import a use effect and also a use state. So when we do that, we check if there is a session. If there is no session, we sign in anonymously. Will we data? if data session set user. I don't think I need that, but I at least need the user state. Or maybe I can have a session state. Better to have everything from a session, not just the user. Make sure to import session from Supabase as well. If data.session, do that. If error, just console log the error. If there is no session, const data error. Oh, whoa, chill. But I need data as well. So if data set session. Okay, so I'm storing it in the state. And then here for the user, I can say session.user, and is if authenticated is going to be true or false, depending on if we have a session or not. Like this. Now, I usually also export a helper hook. Export const use of. That will simply wrap our context in the use context so that we can go here, for example, where in the events, I no longer need here this one, but I need maybe the user information. And I can simply take it from the use of from our providers. And I can say console log user. And if I reload, false is not authenticated and null. Because we never wrapped our auth provider in our application. So we need to go into the root layout and we need to import the auth provider from our providers and wrap it here around our stack like this. Close it at the end. And now if I reload, we see that is authenticated is true, and this is the information about the user. Perfect. Git commit anonymous login. Flavio is asking, can you think about making a multi-tenant project? It can be very simple, just so we can understand how to set up a multi-tenant project. Can you give me some examples of what projects you're thinking about, like a more practical example? All right, so let's go ahead and start working with our database. For example, we have events. Let's go ahead and fetch these events properly in our index file and render them in a list so we can see what kind of events we are part of. To properly query things, we saw that we can do that with directly using use effects and then storing it in state. However, that's going to be harder and harder to manage, and every time we need to query something, we need these use effects. Use effects cannot be asynchronous, so we need to do this little trick of creating that functions, calling it, and then storing the results in state, and then you have to manage the loading states and a lot of things like that manually. That's not how we do that. With Tanstack query, however, you get all of these problems solved. Tanstack query helps you work with remote data in a very optimized way, and it also caches all of this data locally, so it doesn't have to doesn't have to always get it from the server if it's already there in the cache. So very easy to fetch, cache, synchronize, update server state, and so on. Let's go ahead in the installation guide. Start by installing Tanstack React Query. npm I at tanstack/React Query. Then in the root layout, app layout, let's go ahead and import the query client and the query client provider. First, we're going to create the query client by saying new query client. Then with a query client provider, we are going to wrap it around here. Now, all the screens in our application will have access to the same query client. That means that I can go in the application index, which is our home screen, and I can do, instead of use effect and then state and then fetching Supabase and then storing in state, we can do use query from Tanstack query. And here a query needs a couple of things. First is the query key, which how do we identify that query? Like what data are we fetching? We are fetching events. And then the second thing that we need to provide is the query function, query fn. How do we want to get this data? Well, this is any function, async or not. We can use anything, like doesn't need to be Supabase. You can read from local database, you can read from files, you can get it from remote, you can get it from anywhere. It really doesn't matter as long as it returns some data. And if error, throw error. The data that it will return, the use query is going to give us back in an object of a couple of things, such as data, such as is loading, and error. Things that we throw in the function will be populated in the error. Things that we return is going to be our data. Having these things, we can say, hey, if is loading, return an activity indicator, show a loading indicator. If there is an error, return an error saying that, hey, there was an error loading stuff. Otherwise, return a flat list where the data is our data that we have fetched, and the render item is going to render a text for each item, for each event that we fetched. Flat list imported from React Native as well. The text here needs text white, and if I reload, what do we have? We might not be able to see it. Just if I center items, center. Let me think about bg rad, and let's do height 32. Yeah, the thing is that height 32. Yeah, the thing is that we have this large header, and when we have large header and we also have a flat list, we need the inset content, inset adjustment behavior automatic. And if we do that, it will, come on, It's not going to display the flat list behind the events, but it's going to automatically adjust based on the scroll indication and also on the height of this header. I'm going to go back for a second, and here in the index header/title, I will also do header transparent true. Like here at the top, we see the this really nicely, but the large button, it's not there. Remember, I had the same issue. Let me think. Open camera, I don't need any more open camera. Events details, I don't need any more events details. This view, probably I don't need it. I'll just leave flat list here. So now we have events. Yeah, now it works. See? Perfect. And I don't need the background color red. Yeah. Okay. Look, what are we doing here? We are using Supabase. We're fetching the events from Supabase, but we are doing that as part of a use query. That means that we don't have to use state, we don't have to use effects, we don't have to manage the loading state. Everything is done by the use query. And later on, you're also going to see other benefits as well. Now, there are also a couple of things that I usually like to do. The thing is that with this error, when we are working with Supabase, by default, the error is not thrown. By default, it's returned here. That's why we have if error, throw error. But we can say, hey, Supabase, can you please throw on error, because I'm part of the use query, and errors, use query expects the errors to be thrown, and then they will be returned here. So that's why I usually do that throw on error every time I'm working with Supabase inside the use query hook. Return data. Yeah, that's good. Now what I also like to do is I also like to extract the functions of fetching data from Supabase into some services. Let's create a folder services, and let's create events.ts. Let's export const or export function get events, and it's going to do exactly this part. Like it's going to be this fetch event return data. It's going to be a sync function. It's going to need to import Supabase, and back in our index we just say, hey, the query function is going to be get events that we import from our services, and we don't need the Supabase here. So now it's very clean. We just manage like, hey, this is the key, this is the function we need to do. Give me the data, give me the loading state, give me the error, and I'm going to work with them here. Perfect. Now, what I want to do in the components, let's go ahead and create a component that will render one of these events, list event, list item.ts. Let's do export default function event list item that is going to render the event name. Let's import text from React Native. But the type here, I usually like to also do type event list item props. And say that these are the event list item props. Okay, but what type is this event? Well, we know that this is a event coming from a database. Event coming from a database, we can import the tables from our auto-generated database types that we have done before. And these tables has access like these tables. We can access different tables in our database, such as assets, event memberships, or events. The thing is that we also know that let's do type event equal tables events. And here we can do it like this. But the thing is, we know that we also query events with assets, or maybe that's going to come later. Yeah, I'm not going to bother you with that. Let's just leave it like this. So class name text white, font or text 2XL, font bold. Now let's take this event list item in the index. Let's import it and let's render it in the render item like this. And just like that, we have some events here. What I want to do is I want to add to this flat list some content container class name and a gap 4 to add some spacings between these events. Padding 4 as well, that's cool. In the event list item, I can go here, I can wrap it in a view. So to make it like a card, this view is going to come from React Native and is going to have some class name. Background color, let's do neutral, 800. Yeah, that looks good. That's already better. Later on, we're going to add pictures below it as well. But for now, this is our git status, git commit -m, event list, fetch with ton stack, render event list item. Perfect. So now we have a home screen, which is a little bit better already. Hello Assad, how are you doing? Long-time fan of a channel who got a job 2 years ago because of your content. It's ironic because I'm working on an app like this right now for my side project. That's amazing. I'm very happy for you that you got a job with the help of our content. That means a lot. Thank you very much. And good luck with your application. Amazing. That made my day. Okay, so now that we have events, we installed Unstack Query, we carry all the events on the home screen, we render them in a list. Creating an event, I think I'm going to do it a bit later. But let's work on the event details screen. We're going to create a new screen for the event details. For now, that was our event right? So let's, when we press on one of these events, let's redirect the user to that /event page. For that, we learned about the link. A link that we wrap around the whole container because we want to redirect when we press on the whole container. If I say, hey, redirect me to the /event, and then I will import the link, I'm going to see that first of all, styles have been broken. They're broken because this view is no longer rendered as the root. So to the link, I will send a as child to make sure that this link does not render in the component hierarchy, is just attaching to what's already there. So we see that the styling is back, but if we click, nothing happens. Well, because when the link is trying to attach to the child component view, it needs to attach to the onPress event, but the view does not have a onPress event. To solve this small issue, we need to import a pressable and simply replace the view with the pressable, because the pressable is a normal view, but it has also onPress events. Now if I press here, we see that we are redirected to the details page. Perfect. But how do we, on the event page, how do we know to which event we landed? Because did we land on the Vadim's birthday or the John's wedding? Well, in order for us to know that, we need to add a unique ID in that link. For example, I'm going to say, hey, redirect me to the /events/event.id. Now we're going to see that there is no route that can handle this URL, but that's usually what you would expect on web. When you press on in Twitter on a profile, it goes to Twitter/ and the username. So the URL contains the ID of the resource you want to load. Now, let's go ahead and do some changes here on our app structure. We have these events. I'm going to create it as a folder, because events will have details, will have create a new event, will have, like, it's a group of multiple screens. But now we have this ID. Well, I can create it as a file with the following structure. Between square brackets, I'm going to write ID, and that means that this is a dynamic path parameter. I'm going to move from this event everything here in the ID, which is the details of an event with a specific ID. I'm going to remove the event file altogether. Now everything about events are going to be here. We need to adjust a bit the import of the Cloudinary library. And if I reload, we're going to see that now we get back the navigation. But how do we know here event details? What is the ID that we navigated to? What is the ID from the URL? Well, we can do that by using the use local search parameter hook imported from Expo Router. This is going to contain an object with all these dynamic variables. One of them is the ID, because that's how we named it here. That's the name between them brackets, and it should match it exactly. And if I'm going to do here event ID, you're going to see if I press here, the ID ends with 403. If I press on the second one, the ID ends with 2D1. Two different IDs for two different items that we press. So in our file structure, we define it with a dynamic path parameter inside the brackets, square brackets. When we redirect there, we put there an actual value of a dynamic field, for example, /events/ the actual ID. And inside that screen, we take that dynamic value using the use local search parameters. Perfect. Now, all we need to do on this page is to load the data about an event with that ID. For that, I'm going to go into the services, and I'm going to say, hey, I need another function, get event, and by sending an ID, I want to return to fetch the data from Supabase. So Supabase from events table, select all the columns where ID is equal to this ID, throw an error, and also return me one single item. Don't return me a list of items, but one simple item. Perfect. Now we can go get this get event, go into the application events detail screen, this one. I'm going to call it detail screen because it's a screen rendering the details of one specific event. Here, having the ID, which we can also in fact type it so that it's strictly typed, we can use TanStack to fetch the ID of the event with that ID. Let's do use query, import use query from TanStack. We're going to get data is loading an error. Usually I do the same thing. If is loading activity indicator or some kind of render a skeleton, if it's error, render the error. Otherwise, you already have the data.name. You can go ahead and this data rename it to event. So below, it's easier for us to say, it makes more sense to say event.name. And if we don't want to do question mark all the time, in the error, we can say, or if the event is not defined, or maybe we can say if event not found, because there's no error, but the event might not be found in the database. Otherwise, we have it and we can render the name. So now if I do Vadim birthday, I see event Vadim birthday. John's wedding, I see John's wedding. Perfect. Perfecto. In the list where we have all of them, in this flat list, we have a query key that says events. This query key is used to store the results of our query. The data that we get from here is stored in the cache using this key. And if we do the same query in other parts of application, it's going to work with the same cache. That's the benefit. In our detail screen, I will actually do events. What we see here in the query key is that we are adding more values to that query key, saying that, hey, events with different IDs should be stored in different places. But if I'm running the same query to get information about an event, but I'm reusing the same ID, you can reuse that data safely. So that's why the first time it shows the loading screen, but the second time I go there is no loading screen anymore. There is no request to the server, or maybe there is behind the scenes to just update the information, but the idea is that the data is already there in the cache. Same things if I go to John's wedding. Initially there is a small loading screen, but the second time it's not there. Because with the proper query keys and with the power of TanStack query and its cache, we are optimizing how we are fetching this data, how we are using the cache to memorize it. Okie dokie, perfect. What I want you to do here, maybe to work a little bit on the stack headers and so on. So I'm going to go into the application layout, and where I have here events. Let me do one below stack events/ID, because if you go here, you're going to see that that the title is events/ID. Events coming from the folder and ID coming from the file name. Perfect. Event/ID. We have a title event. We have a header large title true. And I think we also, I don't think we have transparent, or maybe we do. No. Like this, it's good. And the header back button minimal, to just have this one. Perfect. Later on, we're going to have scrollable things there as well, and it's going to make a lot of sense. Hello, Aditya, how are you doing? Event. But the cool thing would be to, where is it? In the ID, we have this advanced image. We no longer see this text, but it's below the header. I can add here margin top 20 to 24. Yeah, now I see it. We're going to handle it better when we add like a scroll view, but for now it's good. It would be really cool if this event name is going to be inside the stack in the header title. The problem is that we set the header title inside the layout, and here we do not have information about what's going to be the event because it's dynamic. Well, let me tell you something. It's also possible to adjust the options of a screen from inside the screen itself. To do that, we simply have to do import stack from Expo Router and we render it somewhere on the screen. When we are rendering from the screen, we no longer need to send the name because it knows that this is the screen that it needs to target. And we can change options. For example, we set the event name as the title and we see that it's there at the top. That means that we no longer need to render it as a text, it's rendered as a header. Perfect, that's amazing. And if I go back and do John's wedding, it will initially wait for a bit to load that data, and only after it's loaded, it's going to change from a generic title to a specific title. Whew. Okie dokie. Give me 1 second. I'm going to take a very short, like 2 minutes break, and we come back to work on the events because we are done with events detail screen here. We're done with this. We need to add the camera inside the event details, and then we need to save the asset information in the Supabase. Yeah. And then load and render them. Yeah, the next step is going to be kind of completing everything together when it comes to events and photos. So give me just 1 second and we're going to continue. Okay, guys, so Hello, Creative Rio. How are you doing? Our next goal is to add the camera screen inside the event details. What do I mean by that? Well, I don't know what's going to be here in terms of images, but I know that we're going to have some kind of a floating button, which I can generate maybe. I don't want to use AI now. I will do, it's going to be a view. Inside of it is going to be some kind of an icon, name, and this view is going to have a BG white. It's going to have an absolute position. It's going to be just on the right. It's going to have some padding and rounded full, and it's going to be bottom 0. That it's shown at the top because the whole view should be flex 1 to take the full screen. Perfect. And it will it be a safe area view? I don't know, maybe I will do bottom 10 and right 4. And this size would be 32, maybe 36 or 40. Yeah, maybe that's good. 40. BG white 50. No, it's good like that. Bottom 12. Maybe more padding. Padding 6. Yeah, I think that's good. And this view, I'm going to transform it into a pressable, because what it's going to do is going to open the camera for a specific event. Like you're going to a wedding, you join the wedding, you see here pictures, you open the camera and you want to shoot some pictures that will be added to this album. For that, I'm going to wrap it into a link, and now it's going to link to the /camera. Go here, /camera. Yeah, everything is good. What I want to do next is I want to put the camera inside the when I'm in the camera, in the URL of that camera screen, I need to know for what event I am taking pictures of. For that to happen, I'm going to have to do a couple of changes, because at the moment, the dynamic ID is simply the name of a file, and it's the end of a URL. However, for one specific event, I will have multiple screens. I'll have the event details that will show images, and I'll have a camera. Later on, I'm going to also have like share event, join event, and so on. But for that reason, I need in the events to create a new folder called ID. Now the folder has this dynamic path parameter. I'm going to move a file inside that folder, and I don't have to repeat ID and ID. For that reason, the file is going to now become index. And index is the file that will be the screen that will load when we go to /events/ID. So everything is still working for the details screen. But the cool thing is that now we can move the camera screen inside the ID folder, which means that when I'm going to go to the camera, I'm going to go to events/ID/camera, basically the camera of that event. So if now I reload, most probably in the camera, I have here I imported this lib relatively. I was always thinking like maybe I was lazy to do that, but to prevent this kind of errors where we move things around and then it breaks relative imports, and good thing is to go to the tsconfig in the compiler options to set base URL and then paths. Paths is basically path aliases that will be shortcuts to different screens. So if we start a path with /, it's going to look into the source folder. That means that now, instead of relative paths like that, I can do @lib, where is going to be a shortcut to source folder. So it's going to go from source to lib Cloudinary. And that is going to not break when we move things around, because we no longer use relative paths, we are using path aliases. Now if I will reload, let's see what's the problem. Let's go here. No route name camera, existing nested child. I think I know why. If I go here, yeah, we have events ID camera at the top. The error that we were getting is coming from the underscore layout, because here where we set the title for the camera, we changed a bit how is the name of that screen or where it is. So the name of the screen is going to be events ID camera. And that's what we need to change here for these options to be applied. I still don't see them for some reason. I reload. Events ID camera. Events ID camera. Should be here. Events ID. For the events ID, we need to do events ID / index. And now the header large, yeah, it's there. But for the camera, I don't know why it's not working. Because I have title. Didn't I have, wait a second, camera. Title camera. What am I doing? What am I doing there? Camera. Oh, I don't need the initial events. The initial / here. Perfect. So John Wedding. Okay, good. Now, with those changes, that means that now in the camera, we can know for what event are we taking photo by taking the ID from the use local / parameters. Now, if I do console.log ID, if I go here, press here, I know that I'm shooting for this ID, for the event with that ID. If I go to this one, it's a different ID. And we need that because after we take a photo, we upload it to Cloudinary, we need to save it to the database assets table. In our database, we have the assets table that will contain this information about one picture for an event by a user at a specific time with specific metadata. So what we need to do is, let me remember, in the services, we're going to have a new service, assets.ts. Here in the assets, we're going to export const insert asset. It's going to be an asynchronous function, new asset, and it's going to work with Supabase as well. Now, the data type of this asset is not going to be the data from the tables, because some things when we are inserting are optional, such as the ID, which is auto-generated. That's why we're going to use tables insert, and as well here target the assets table. Now we see that the ID is optional, the created at is optional, they are auto-generated, and everything else actually is optional. So what we're doing here is we are taking this new asset, we are inserting it in the database, then we are selecting to get back the auto-generated ID, and we can also say, hey, select, but select only the single item, not to be an array. Throw an error, if something happened, throw that error, and if everything is good, return the data. I think that's what we want here. Now back to the camera. At the top, we are going to import not a use query now, but already a use mutation from Tanstack query. When we fetch some data, we need a query. When we update some remote data, in that case, we're working with a mutation. So, insert asset mutation is equal to use mutation. It also has a mutation fn, mutation function, and when we call it, we are going to insert an asset, and it needs some information. The event ID. What is going to be the event ID? Well, the event is going to be the ID from the URL, from the search parameters. The next step is going to be the user ID and the asset ID. No, the user ID and the asset ID. The asset ID is something that we are going to get from Cloudinary when we take a photo. So I'm going to say that, hey, when we call this mutation function, we're going to send the asset ID as a string. We're going to take this asset ID and we're going to send it when we insert this one here. Lastly, the user ID is something that we can take from our custom hook called useOf that we created before. From our providers, we can take the user and we can say user ID like this. Finally, let me check insert event. I don't need this one, right? Yeah. So yeah, now this insert mutation is also similar to a query, has the data, it has is loading, is error, and so on, but it also has a function called mutate. I'm not going to destructure it. I'm going to keep it like this, but I'm going to call it after we upload to Cloudinary, I'm going to assert, hey, insert asset mutation dot mutate, basically call this mutation function with this asset ID parameter, where the asset ID is going to be the Cloudinary response public ID. And what we do inside that mutation, we are inserting a new item in the database. Let's see if that works by going here, styles doesn't exist. It has some styles here and it was removed when I was adding stuff. So I'm going to copy everything and I'm going to do a lot of Ctrl-Z until I get back the styles. And then I'm going to select everything except the styles and paste it again. So now I can go to the camera, I can take a picture and I can look here what's happening. I don't know, but I'm going to check the table into the assets and see, do we have a new asset? Well, here we have it. We have an asset that was created just now. It has the ID 1. It has the event ID that is linking to the event from our database. This is the user ID of my account, and this is the asset ID that is coming from Cloudinary of this file that has nothing because I took it from the emulator. But the cool thing is that it's stored this information in the Supabase. Let me do something like that with my phone as well. Here it is. Let's go here. Let's take a picture. Let's also take a selfie. Come on. I think we have a couple of them already. If I will look in the Cloudinary, we're going to have probably 3 photos. In the Supabase, we also have these photos. That's cool. That means that we correctly stored this information in database. What will that allow us to do? That will allow us to, on the details page of my event, to render this photo album. So in the events index, where we get the event, let me open this function and say, hey, I don't only want the information about the event, such as the name and the created at. I also want to select all the related assets with all the columns, all information about the related assets that are linking to these events. If I go back and hover over this event, we're going to see that, hey, already one event has an array of assets with its information. So what I can do is I can render a flat list of pictures, a flat list that I will import from React Native. And let me create a component for a second called Cloudinary image, or let's do asset item.tsx. Asset item. Export default. The asset is going to come from the database, so it's going to be tables assets. And what it's going to do is it's going to render this advanced image. So asset item, let's render it as an advanced image from Cloudinary. width, we can take it. Okay, now this asset item, instead of this hard-coded ID, I'm going to say asset ID. Now back here in the flat list, I'm going to render the asset item, which I have to import here at the top. And I can import it like this. And here in services also I can do like this. And if I reload and go back to Vadim's birthday, we have some information here. We have some pictures. That's cool. I'll clean up a little bit things that I don't need from here. And this flat list, I will say that it has 2 columns. I want to render the images in 2 columns. In the asset item, full flex 1. I need to add flex 1 to say that, hey, take this one. For the width of the image, I think now it makes sense to even do divided by 2. Because they are even smaller on the screen, it's like half of the width. And I can also do content container gap 4. Not sure if it's gap 4. And also gap 1. Asset item. Maybe I will do rounded. Yeah, that's okay. And back here in this flat list, let's add the insets, content insets behavior adjustment that is going to help us manage the header. Yeah, now it doesn't work because I think in this case the header should be transparent. So I'm going to go back into the layout where we have events index, and I'm going to do header transparent true. Header transparent. Isn't it here that I'm looking? See, there is a small bug, but header transparent true. Header blur effect maybe. Should it also be here where we do maybe it doesn't need this view. Yeah, maybe like this. Yeah, that's cool. Perfect. Amazing. And I can change this also the artistic filters, the styles of them from here for all of them. Comic. Is there such a thing? Maybe there is no such thing. Al dente. Look at that. Cool. And you can see that this information is only like based on event, like not for all of them. And now if I go here and take another picture, maybe I'm going to do it with the same here. The next problem I want to solve is like after I take a picture and after I go back, it's not here at this moment. And I cannot even drag and drop to reload it. For that to happen, first of all, I'm going to do a couple of things. The drag and drop is going to happen like, let's go here, events. The use query has is refetching and also refetch function. Two important things that we can send to the flat list by saying, hey, refreshing is going to be a boolean whether we are refetching or not. And on refresh, refetch. What does that mean? That means that if I do like this, it's going to load new images. Another thing is that if there is only one image in the line, it's going to take all of the space. I can go into the asset item and say max width 50%. And now it's like this. Perfect. So let me show you with the refresh. Like if on my phone, I'm going to take a picture like to this dirty keyboard. And if I come here and drag and drop, it's going to refetch that query, hopefully. And this new image appears here at the bottom. Perfect. But I would also like to automatically for the picture to appear once we take it from the camera. To do that, there is a concept of invalidating queries. When we run mutations, in a lot of cases, we know that the result of a mutation will change, will update some data in the backend, meaning that it will update some UI. In this case, inserting an asset will change the information about the event with that ID. So what we can do is we can take the query client using a hook use query client from task query. In the mutation, we can say, hey, on success, invalidate the queries that have this key events with this ID. And the query that has this key is exactly this one that renders the pictures. So that means that now, if I go to John's wedding and take a photo and come back, it should be here. Yes, it is here. So it automatically updates based on like when things are happening. Perfect. Let me go ahead and probably I'm going to do a git add, git commit -m add photos to events. Perfect. Hello to Sif, Tausif. Tausif is saying, I just watched your in-app purchases video yesterday of Revenue Cat and became a fan of you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope you subscribe to the channel. Okay, let's go back to our process. We added the camera screen to the event details. We save the asset information in Supabase after storing it in Cloudinary. we loaded and rendered images inside the detail screen of the event. Perfect. The next process is going to be to create events and then to share events with a QR code. Sharing events with QR code might actually be even more interesting than creating events. But let's do create event first because it's such an important feature. So I'm going to do first create event, and then we're going to implement share event using a QR code so others can join, and then managing the event memberships. So creating an event, let's go ahead and start by creating a new screen. The screen for creating a new event is going to be in the events folder, but not in the ID folder. So I'm going to hover over events and I'm going to create a new file called create.tsx. This one is going to say, hey, export default create event. Let's render something default. And let's see when do we navigate here. We're going to navigate here when we are here in the events on the index. I'm going to say, hey, render a list header component with create events text. I'm going to add a pressable with some styles generated by AI, obviously. As child, this is going to be white create event. I also want an odd outline to make it more clear that it's a create event. Purple, I don't know. Let's do something like that. So if I press on create event, I'm going to be on the event/create. Let's at least change the title of that page by going to the layout and rendering a new stack screen somewhere here with a name events create, title create event. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a presentation model. Having a presentation model on iOS, it's going to show as a model coming from the bottom up. We can dismiss it by throwing it down. On Android, it's going to be a normal screen that comes with an animation because this is not how Android works. Like this is a native animation of a stack screen on iOS. So that's expected. If on Android it doesn't look exactly the same, I know. Now let's go ahead and build a little bit our screen. So in the events create, what I'm going to need here is a text input. A text input with a placeholder event name. And I'm going to import the text input from here. The text input needs a class name. The view needs a class name. We also need a button. I'm going to use the default button from React Native. This doesn't need to be white. It can be neutral 800. Text can be white. The placeholder color can be gray. Padding 6. 4, it's okay. 5. Okay, and here at the top, gap 4. So that's it. We just need an event name. Here, we're going to store the event name in the state, and we're going to attach the value and the onChange text. We're going to map it to the use state. So now if I do blue, we store it in the state. All right, now we need to, when we press create event, we need to save this information in Supabase. For that, in the services events, I'm going to need a new function called create event. It just needs the event name, or maybe we can do also with a new event where we are using the dynamic insert tables events type imported from table inserts, sorry. Now this new event is gonna go here. Select single thrown error. Yeah, everything looks good. Now back in our application, create. We need a mutation here. Create event mutation. The mutation is going to call the create event from our services, and we're going to send as the name of that event the state event name, which maybe we can even simplify it with just name, not event name. The event, if you remember, also has the owner ID. What we can do is we can take the user from useOf, which is our custom hook, and say that the owner ID is going to be this user ID. Object leader owner ID does not exist on this type. Well, maybe because we updated the types, so I'm going to rerun supa types to update our TypeScript definition. And now it's okay with that. So that's it. In the create event mutation, I'm going to call it when we press the button. So if I go here and say test and press create event, something is happening. I don't know what. But if I go into the events, we see a new event called test. It also has an owner. Everything looks good. But we need to do something on the UI after this has successfully created. First of all, we need to say that, hey, we need to reset the name to empty. Then we are going to replace the current screen of a create event with a details screen of that event. So the success is going to get the data. We can take the ID from there. And we can also invalidate some queries, because we know that by creating a new event, the list on the home screen will have to change because it's going to have a new event there. So we're going to invalidate query with the query key events, which belongs to this one. So now if I go here and say test2 and do create event, I'm going to be redirected to this event, to events ID. Maybe it doesn't have a data. Let me check console log data. If I do like this, data, it has data and it has ID. I don't understand. Events data ID test2. It's loading, but something is not okay. Let's see. In the index, I see already some problems. Event. Column assets does not exist on events. Something wrong here with events assets. Oh, it should be select assets like this. How was it working before? Or maybe it changed. Okay, so now probably it's going to work like this as well. Works, create event, it comes here, there is no images. You can of course render something here. Hey, add an image, but I can go here and already probably add some images. Perfect. So we are able to create new events. During this creation of events, maybe you can add more information. You can add when is the event starting. Is it starting right now, or is it a scheduled event that is going to start in the future? When is the event ending? What are the settings? Maybe you want to allow people to view images only after the event has finished, or the second day after the event has finished. You can add the default filter you want to apply to each images. And then when we are rendering the asset item, you can take this filter from the database of the event and make sure that all images have the same filter that is chosen by the organizer. Sorry. For now, I'm going to leave it like this because I want to show you something cooler, which is the QR code invite. Commit M. Create new events. Git add, git commit, git push origin main. The stack is in the screen. What do you mean the stack is in the screen? Beautiful. Okie dokie. So, the part that I am very excited about. Let me update here. Create. We created. We rendered the form. We saved the event in the Supabase. Now, share the event by the QR code. First things first, in the event details page, like if I go here, I want to create a new screen that will simply show the QR code. I'm going to call it, should I call it share? Yeah, let's do it share. Export default share. Now I'm going to go into the layout and I'm going to have a new stack screen with name events ID share. Title is going to be share and presentation model. I think that's cool. And how do I go there? I'm going to go there by pressing a button in this header of the detail screen. So I'm going to go into the ID index where we change the dynamic title here. I'm going to say, hey, also render a header, which is going to be Onicon's name share outline. Will it work? Header right. Yeah, sorry, header right. Come on. Photo sharing. If I go here, the header right, perfect. The link is also going to, the icon is also going to be inside a link where it's going to be events, the specific ID .share as child. And here in the class name, I'm going to do margin right 2, margin left 2 to center this icon there. This is only like, you see this kind of icons because I'm running the iOS 26 with Glass UI. If you're running a older version of iOS, like you're going to see different styles for these icons, for these headers as well. Okay, so we have this glass share button. If I press on it, it's going to open a model with a share screen. If we go back to the share screen, that's where I would like to say share event with your friends. Here, what I want to do is I want to render a QR code. For that, I used a library called React Native QR Code SVG. And what I will do is simply copy the npm command to install React Native SVG and the QR Code SVG. Let's go here. And we just need to render the QR code like this. And import it, I think not even the structure like this. So if I go here and do share, I see a QR code. I can give it a bigger size. And if I scan this QR code, I'm going to be redirected here. Like you can try it and you're going to see, but I already tried it and I know. Maybe I don't want it in the center like this. What link do we want to render here? We want to render here some kind of a link that will open the application and make the user join this event. So it's going to be some kind of deep link to our page. Let's figure out the deep link to our page in a second. For now, let's just simply say, like, let's create a page where the user will land when he will scan this QR code. That page is going to be called, let's say, event ID join.tsx. Export default join event. In this page, we're going to need information about the event. So we're going to need the ID of that event from this local search. And we're going to need the data about the event by querying that event information. Now we're going to say, hey, you are invited to join, and then we're going to say the name of the event. Event name. I don't need a QR code here. So for a second, I'm going to go into this index, and instead of navigating to the share, I'm going to navigate to the join. I'm going to move a step ahead. So now if I press here, I'm redirected to the join. I'll go back to the layout, and I also do the same thing as I have for the share to the join as well. It's going to be join event. It's going to be a model. So if I go here and press, I'll see join event. You're invited to join. And what I'm invited to join, I need to add the text white here, Vadim's birthday. This is going to be text. LG neutral 400 text 2XL or even 3XL. This is going to be item center. And below I'm going to have a button join event. When I press this join event, I need to say like, yeah, I agree, I want to join this event. Like this is the correct one that I'm looking for. Okay. What should happen when I press join event? Remember we had created this event membership. So when we join an event, we want to create to insert a line, an item in this table saying that this user wants to join this event ID and user ID. So in the services, I'm not going to create a new file. I'm going to go into the events as well, and I'm going to say, hey, join event ID, user ID. It's going to work with event membership. It's going to insert event ID, user ID. It doesn't even need to return, but okay. So this is the function we need to call to join an event. Let's go into the join function. Let's say join event mutation. We do that. And on success, we invalidate some queries. And we do router replace events/ID. User ID can be null, but it's okay. Like we know that in this case it's not going to be null. So join event mutation is the function that we call .mutate when we press that button. Look now what's going to happen. If I go here and I open this join event, the link that we're going to usually see after scanning a QR code, if I press the join event, I'm going to be redirected to the events page. And in the table here, we're going to see a new membership saying that this user ID has joined this event ID. Perfect. What else? If I try to do it again, will it be a problem? Well, I think it kind of is because the item already exists there. So maybe we need to check if you are already a member or not, or maybe, yeah, basically you're already a member. So you need to double check that before and prevent doing this. Because I can also delete this throw an error, not to throw this error, but I don't know if I want to do that. It would be better to check and to say like, hey, you are already a member of this event. And that's it. Oh, okie dokie. Now we need to put everything together. Well, let's do one more thing. Before I'm going to show you the flow of joining the event, because we added this event membership, on the home screen, I only want to render events that I am a member of. Because in the database, there might be millions of events, but I only want to display events that I have joined, that I have scanned the QR code. For that, here in the events, what I'm going to do is get events, Supabase events. Export async function get events by user ID. Get events for user. This is going to be a bit interesting. So we're not going to directly query the events. We're going to query the events memberships. And I'm going to say, hey, where the user ID is equal to this ID, give me all the memberships. And for each membership, give me the event that links to that membership. Select, and I'm going to return a mapping because I'm working with event memberships. Event membership dot events. I'm going to only look at the events. So if I take this one, go here and say get events for user ID, but I need to send the user ID like this. But for that, I need the user ID from there. Let's see if it's going to work. I will probably leave it like this. So now if I go here, we see only one, because that's the one we joined. And one more thing, like when we create an event, I think we automatically have to add a membership as well. So in the events create, when we create a membership, we call create membership. On success, or maybe inside the create event, we need to insert the event, and we also need to insert a membership. New event, and the second parameter is going to be user ID. So we're also saying that, hey, the person that now created the event is also part of that event. But we need to send here user ID in the create, like, or maybe we don't need to do that, or maybe we need, because we can take the new object.owner ID. Yeah, this works. So now if I create a new my party, look, I'm creating my party. It's here. I don't see all the events in the list. I only see my party. Another thing I see that I don't really like is activity indicator is there at the top. You can always put this inside views that have the flex 1 item center, justify center. Now if I do that, the loading is going to be in the middle. Cool. So I have only events that I'm part of. On my physical device, look what's going to be here. My physical device, it's another account, as far as I understand. And that means that I do not have any events here. I can create one, my physical device, create event, and I can add here photos to my physical device event. Are we here? Yeah, we're here. But they're separate. So this is the cool thing about these memberships, because we do not show all the events, only the ones that you are part of. And let's finish up with the joining the membership aspect. For example, if from my physical device, I will want to join Vadim's birthday party. What I'm going to want to do is from this device, I want to share the event. So let me go back and saying that, hey, in the index, this share should open the share page. In the share, I want to say, hey, you need to send a link, a deep link to the join page. The join page is going to be something, 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 then slash it's going to be slash events slash ID slash join. We need the ID, we can take it from the use local search parameters because this share is still inside the ID folder. But what's going to be the first part? The first part in normal circumstances is going to be your schema, photo sharing like this. Where is it? Share. Photo sharing like this. But because we are running in Expo Go, so I think we can even check if we're running in Expo Go. I'm going to keep it like this for production. Make sure that this is production. But in development, I'm going to change this path because we are running in Expo Go. And if I check here, we see that Metro is waiting on EXP, and this is basically the beginning URL. So I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to replace it with a photo sharing. No, I'm going to replace it with a whole part like this. Then I'm going to do slash dash slash. A bit weird, but basically after this dash dash, these paths are going to the application. This is saying like go open Expo Go, but this part is saying open this application at this event. So if everything is working fine, I should be able to open Vadim's birthday party, do share from my physical device, open up my camera, point to this QR code and say open in Expo Go. In Expo Go, I see join event, Vadim's birthday party. If I don't do anything, I'm not part of that event yet. But if I scan this QR code and open it, I see the join event page. I press join event and I am a member of the birthday party. And I can take a new picture of this one. Should be somewhere there. And after joining, I should also refresh stuff. Maybe drag and drop should also refresh here, but it's there. Like it just needs a couple of automatic reloading. But if I reload, like the idea is here. It's going to open the last open deep link, but that's only in Expo Go. In production, it's going to not do that. Now we see that I'm a member of Vadim's birthday party. Perfect, amazing, cool. Whew. So that was the demonstration of how we can share events and resources with a QR code and how we can use deep links. Again, this weird deep link is only because we are working with Expo Go, but in production, this is going to be simply your schema / events. And if you are having like universal links, you can also share there a website, and it's either going to open your web application or it's going to open the application if you have one. But for that, you need a bit more configuration. Anyway, I think that's most of the things that I wanted to share with you today. Creating a new event page, installing, create a membership, filter event on the home screen. And there is a couple of additional stuff that I wanted to show you. First of all, I would really love to test the Galleria package by Fernando Rojo that would allow us to view images like this. I'd also like to be able to see how many people are in the events. I would also love to be able to set your username, your profile page, and to show this information on top of the images. There is also some ideas on adding filters for photos. We have them, but it would be nice to be able to select them. To add watermarks, like a small text of the event name, like Vadim birthday and then the date, which would be cool. And it's possible to do very easily with Cloudinary. Videos are optional, but this Galleria and to improve the home screen, to manage a bit the profile, and to improve the security is something that I would really love to do, but we do not manage to do here publicly on YouTube. For that reason, we're going to stop this stream, and in 5 minutes, I'm going to start a new stream for members only. So if you are not yet a member, you can be part of a Notjust club and get access to these extended live streams where I continue every build for like 30 or 1 hour, 30 minutes to 1 hour more, where I implement some additional features that I didn't manage to do in a stream. So if you are interested, you can go to our channel and there should be a button join. I don't know where it is because I'm probably join here, but you're going to see the join button and you can join the membership and you're going to have access to these extended streams. We already have a lot of them here, a lot of posts. We have also exclusive workshops on animations. So if you're interested, make sure to join there. But for the Photos application, that's everything I wanted to integrate today. Thank you very much for joining. I really hope you enjoy this tutorial. I had a lot of fun preparing and building it live together with you. There is a lot of potential in this kind of application. So I would encourage you to think about what you can do from here, because this is a very good and strong core that you can continue improving and launching maybe something on the market. I will leave you with that, and if you're interested in launching applications to the market, but you feel that you don't know everything, you maybe have some technical challenges or you don't know how to approach, or you've been procrastinating for too long, then go ahead and check out our incubator, which is going to solve that problem. It's helping you build and launch application in 10 weeks. Even if you don't have an idea, we're going to help you research a good idea that will make sure that your application can generate money from day one. We are preparing the next batch of only 10 applications for October. If you're interested, make sure to join the waitlist. All right, thank you very much, Cloudinary, for making this video possible. Thank you everyone for joining. Make sure to subscribe to the channel because we have a lot of cool content coming your way this autumn, and I'm very excited to be back here with you on YouTube. All right, thank you very much and have a nice day, guys. With all the channel members, with all the club members, I'm going to see you in 5 minutes. I'll just stop this stream, restart that one. We lower the table, we sit down, and we implement more amazing features. So I'm going to catch up with you in a second. Bye-bye.